Hey there, in this video we're going to talk about getting set up and ready to play. So let's start with the practice pad, okay? This is what it's going to look like right out of the box, okay? It's a tunable head. It has all these screws around it. You don't need to worry about that yet. Right out of the box it should be ready to go. Every month or so these will need to be adjusted, but that's not something you're going to do. That's something I'm going to do, okay? So this is the practice pad. We need to label these. And the reason is every single percussion student has this exact same practice pad. Okay? Same for the stick, same for the stand, same for the mallet, same for everything. Every student has the same thing. And every year I'll find a pair of xylophone mallets laying on the ground or a pair of murmur mallets laying on the ground that cost like 35, 40 bucks for a pair. And I have no idea whose they are. Okay? Your parents probably spent or did spend a lot of money buying this stuff for you, so we need to protect that. We need to make sure that if your items are misplaced, we can get it back to you. So that's why we're going to label everything. Okay, so on the practice pad, it's a couple different things you can do. You can, this is where I like to do it. I like to take a black Sharpie here and just write my name on it. Okay, so I'm gonna do that now. Okay, so right there I wrote my name. Okay, now this is kind of an old practice pad. It has something written on here. I would not write your name on the top of this because you're going to play on this, and over time that it's going to wear off. Okay, so just put it on the bottom. That way it'll never come off. Okay, so that's the practice pad. We'll come back to that in a second. This is your practice pad stand. Okay, there's a screw here. We call these wing nuts. Okay, this little guy right here, that's called a wing nut. There's one there, and there's another one there, and they all do different things. Okay, so this first one here, you unscrew it, and that allows you to widen out the base. Notice how I grabbed it kind of all three parts here and spread it out. Sometimes what will happen is a student will grab two and it'll get stuck. Just kind of pop that other one loose, okay? If it takes a lot of force, something's stuck. Don't just, try to Hulk smash and get it open. Okay, so we're gonna open it to about this much right here, and then I'm gonna tighten down that wing nut. Now, you don't need to death grip it, okay? It doesn't have to be super tight, just enough to hold it in place, okay? This one right here adjusts the height. This will allow this piece, and this one kind of gets stuck a little bit too sometimes, okay? So just kind of get a little twist. This one allows the height, the pad to move up and down, which is very important because you're not all the same height, okay? Now, this one right here, this top one, you should never really need to adjust this. This is called a tilter. It allows the practice pad to tilt. We always want this to be perfectly flat. Okay, we don't ever play on an angled drum. Okay, so that's always going to be like that. Now, for the label on this one, we need to do it somewhere where it's not going to get in the way. Like if I label it right here, it's gonna disappear or the tape's gonna get messed up. So I'm going to show you how I label the practice pad stand. Okay, so right here, kind of near the top of the first part of the stand, I put a piece of white electric tape, and then I just use a Sharpie to write my name on there. Now, you could write directly on the stand. It may rub off, okay? If you don't have white electric tape, you could use something like duct tape. It's going to be a little sticky if it ever comes off, but it's not a big deal. Just need to have some kind of permanent marking right there so that, like I said, if you ever misplace it or I find it in the band hall, I know exactly whose it is, okay? So now that we have the practice pad stand labeled and we've got it opened up, we're going to attach it to the practice pad, okay? You see there's a receiver bolt here on the bottom. That is going to fit onto this screw right here at the top of the stand. You just set it on there. A little wobbly. Give it a spin, and I'm kind of holding onto the bottom and twisting it in place. Again, doesn't need to be death grip tight, okay, but it needs to be nice and solid, okay? And then it's basically ready to go. We'll talk about how to adjust the height when we start playing, okay? There's a very specific height you're gonna set this up, and it has to do with how tall you are. We'll deal with that later, but for right now, practice pad stand are ready to go. Okay, the next thing you're gonna set up is your folding music stand. Okay, this was part of your supply kit. You need to have your music in a very specific place when you practice, okay? You can't just lay your binder down next to you or set it on the floor or put it over here up against the wall. Okay, when you practice, your music stand needs to be right there by the practice pad. So that's why we have you buy that practice pad stand, or excuse me, that music stand. So you're going to have that at home so you can practice correctly. So this is one that I have at the school. These are the fancy ones we use when we're in the band hall. These things are like 80, 90 bucks. You don't need anything this expensive, okay? That wire one will do just fine. Okay, so the next thing is your drumsticks. Now there are 3 different kinds of drumsticks in your supply kit. There's a reason for that. It's because we play the snare drum 3 different ways in 3 different styles, and they all need a separate kind of drumstick. If you look at those, you'll notice that the width of the stick is different on all of them. Some are ones like a lot thicker and heavier than the other ones. The beads, the top here, those are shaped differently on all the drumsticks. The taper is different, like the way the stick gets narrow at the end. So they all do different things. The one we're going to start with are the IPLD, okay? And it's got a little signature on here. It says Lalo Dabula. That's the stick you want to be working on for this one, okay? So this sleeve here, you don't need this. We can throw that in the trash, okay? So you got your Lalo Dabula sticks, and now we're going to label them. This step is going to be very, very important. Is if you mislabel them, this is not just about getting your name on there. This is about learning where to hold the stick. So pay very close attention to how I label these sticks. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, like with the practice pad and the practice pad stand, is we need to put our names on them. Now there's not really room to write your whole name. Anywhere you put it on the drumstick itself, because you touch them a lot, it's going to wear off. So we're going to label them on what we call the butt end of the stick. I know, giggle, giggle, giggle. I get it. It's funny. This is called the butt of the stick. Okay, it's the flat area. Okay, so and you don't really have room to write your whole name, so I'm just going to put my initials on here. Okay, so right there you can see I've written my initials, AM. Did it a little sloppy, but that's all right. As long as I can identify it and you can identify it, then we're good. Now, the next part is very important that you watch carefully. Okay. There's a label on the drumstick, okay? There is a very specific point on this drumstick where we're going to put a piece of tape. That tape, this is not for your name this time, we're labeling what we call the fulcrum, or the balance point of the stick. This is where you're going to place your thumb when you grab the stick. Now, if you do this right, this tape will train you to grab the stick at the correct place. If you label it wrong, and start grabbing it at the wrong place, then the stick's not going to work right. It's going to be out of balance, and you're going to have to kind of relearn that, okay? So I'm going to label my stick and show you exactly where to put that piece of tape. Okay, so I've got one of them done. So on the stick, you see the Innovative Percussion logo here, and then it says IPLD, and then it says Mr. Dabula has his signature right there. And then right after the signature, it says USA, okay? I centered my tape over USA. Now, for this one, you can use, like I have white electric tape. That's something we use for drumline, so I just have a bunch of it laying around. You can use duct tape, but you're going to want to cut it to where it's this width. Like, you don't want a gigantic piece of tape here. You want something that's going to fit the pad of your thumb so you can feel that as you're playing. Okay? See how I'm grabbing it right on the tape? I want to be able to feel that when I'm first learning to move the drumstick. Okay? So, do this for both sticks. Okay? Put that piece of tape right over USA, and don't put like 18 rolls around the stick because you don't want it to all of a sudden become thicker, okay? So just like that for both sticks, and then the sticks are good to go. Okay, the next thing we're gonna talk about is your metronome, okay? Now, there are handheld, like standalone metronomes. Like here's a really fancy one. I bought this back in college. These things cost like 150 bucks. You don't need anything that fancy, okay? You can get a perfectly fine metronome for 25, 30 bucks, okay? Another option is to use a metronome app on your smartphone. This one's called Tonal Energy. I believe it's like $4 on the App Store, and I think it's available on Android as well. This is something at the high school that we require all of our band students to have. They're required to have Tonal Energy. This is a really fancy one. It has a tuner built in. You can program it. It can do a lot of things, but there are also a ton of free metronomes in the App Store. Just go to your App Store on whatever platform you're on and type in free metronome. You can do the same thing on your computer, on your desktop, laptop, on your tablet, whatever. Okay, you're gonna have to have a metronome. Here's the thing you need to consider about your metronome. Your metronome cannot be on the same device that you're going to be recording your assessments on. Okay, you will do a lot of recorded assessments where you will make a video, upload it to your Denton ISD YouTube channel, and then send me the link, and that will be the way I grade it. Okay, your metronome has to be on a different device. So if you're going to record on your iPhone or on your smartphone, then you need to have either a standalone metronome or a metronome on a different device. Okay, so like if you only have the one device, like if you're trying to do everything with your smartphone, then you need to probably have a standalone metronome, like that $25, $30 metronome I talked about. Okay, all right, the last part of our setup, the last kind of piece of equipment we're going to need is going to be your binder. Okay, there's a couple things you're going to need in this binder. Okay, you're going to need to have a pencil pouch that has at least one sharpened pencil in it. I would throw like 4 or 5 of those in there. Okay, and then you're going to have your workbook, okay, which you should have now already. Okay, that should have been distributed to you. So you have this every time you're in class or every time you're practicing at home. This goes to and from school every single day. You never practice, you never have a rehearsal without this binder. Okay? Okay, so now we got all the pieces together. Now we're gonna set up our practice zone. Okay? There needs to be a consistent place in your house where you practice every night, and it needs to be a quiet place. Okay? Don't do this next to the PlayStation. Okay? Your room, if you have like a living room that doesn't get used a whole lot, or a room in your house, it just needs to be quiet. Okay, we don't want to be able to hear a TV in the background when you're practicing, because that's going to be a distraction. Okay, so your room is probably the best place to do it. That's where my practice zone is. All right, so this is what I'm going to want to see in your video. I've got my music stand. Okay, remember yours is going to be that wire one that kind of folds out. Okay, I've got my binder. I've got my pencil pouch. I've got my workbook here. My pencil is sitting on the music stand. Okay, it's not in the pencil pouch, and it's going to be this way in class too. Okay, every once in a while I'll just say, show me your pencil, and you got like 1 second to hold it up. Okay, if you have to go and unzip the pouch, you've goofed up. Now the reason I want that out is because I want you to frequently mark your music. Okay, when you make a mistake, you put a little pencil mark there. If I tell you something, hey, you need to remember this, you need to write it down instantly. And having to go back into the pencil pouch to grab that is going to discourage you from doing it. It's going to make you less likely. Okay, so have the pencil sitting out on the stand. I have my metronome. Now, whenever I use my metronome, and I'm going to insist that you do the same thing, whenever I use a metronome that's on my phone is on airplane mode, and I have turned the screen setting to where it never locks. It just always stays on. If you are not in airplane mode, you are going to get distracted by notifications, by text messages. Okay? When it's time to practice, we shut off the outside world. Okay? So make sure if you're using your smartphone or a tablet or something as a metronome, that you've got that thing in airplane mode, because nobody's going to bug you when you're practicing. All right? I've got my practice pad right in front of the stand here, not quite touching. Okay? It's been labeled here. Whoops, excuse me. It's been labeled here. I labeled the bottom of the practice pad. And then lastly, I have my sticks. We labeled the butt of the stick with our initial, and we put a piece of tape right there over USA. Okay? That's what you're going to show me in your video. So we're going to take a video. Doesn't have to be more than 15 seconds. All you got to do is show me. Like, I need to see the binder, the music, the pencil pouch, the pencil, metronome, pad, stand, sticks, everything labeled correctly. Upload that to your YouTube channel. Put the link. The assignment is the next thing in this module. Okay, so here is my practice zone. We got my practice pad, which has been labeled on the bottom. I showed you last time. And then my name is on the stand. I've got my music stand here, drumsticks, taped, labeled on the butt of the stick. Got a pencil right here. Got my band binder, okay, with my music, pencil pouch. I've got my metronome.